Hi, I'm Tomokino. This is my friend here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Velicor.
Right, yeah. How was your day?
I don't know if that's a question either of us want to answer, but how was
S-
your day?
Yeah, well, anyway. Alright, this poem is called Out of These Wounds the Moon Will Rise by Jay Hopler. It reads Now that the sun has set and the rain has abated and every porch light in the neighborhood is lit, maybe we can invent something. I'd like a new way of experiencing the world, a way of taking into myself the single light shining at the center of all things without losing the dense, eccentric planets orbiting around it. What you'd like is a more attentive lover, I suppose. Too bad that slow, wet scorch of orange blossoms floating towards the storm drain is not a fate of stars. We could make a wish on one of them, not that we would wish for anything but the impossible. Alright, so what do you think this poem is about, at least generally?
I've gone pretty much back and forth on how I feel about this as we keep presenting our different ideas. But I think overall I've concluded that to me, this is sort of the person, like the narrator, going over their feelings about like a matter. Something has changed and it's kind of re-examining like almost a hopefulness and a desire for something that's never going to be there.
Yeah, I feel like I see it the same way. I feel like it's like a moment of realization in a
Yeah,
form, right? Like,
contemplation.
yeah, contemplation, very much looking at it like, uh, I see and I want but I can't get sort of thing, right?
Exactly. And like the
Yeah,
definitive, like you're saying, like ending to a thing.
yeah. And like, with it being this type of poem, I do also feel a sense of romance in like its words. Like this is relating to love in some form or fashion, right?
I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah, like I've said, it's kind of like a very much a longing. And I feel I always usually sort of connect that to a romantic longing in my head.
Yeah. I feel like I do the same. And let's see. To kind of focus in on it, this is like an ending of sorts, right? Where it's
Oh
like,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, this realization, this is towards when they figure it all out, but it's already done and they can't turn back.
I agree. I feel like it's kind of it's not so much like this is when it ends as much as it is looking back on like this is what has happened. It's all done and it's more of that like when you do something and like it's just something you do in the heat of the moment and it doesn't quite set in what it is until you're sitting there and you have that space to think and you have that time and suddenly it all comes crashing down on you and I feel like we're seeing this moment in
Yeah.
this poem.
And like, although it isn't explicitly stated with like the object of the moon, I feel like, having that, like you said, the space, this like pure blue light coming down, as well as the ever evanescent light of the porch. It's a very calming yet surreal feeling, right?
Yeah, I see surreal. I feel it's just there's something about it that there's a weight to it.
Yeah,
And I feel like it's a moment that we're sharing with just this like reader, the or well, not reader, the reader is sharing this with the narrator.
yeah,
It's an experience that we're experiencing along with them.
yeah. It's very much like instead of like you're looking through this perspective, you're practically being taken for a ride when you're reading this.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think you'll see like relationships compared to like a roller coaster a lot of time. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's what this poem has been.
Oh, I that makes so much sense. Yeah. All right. So going into this, we're gonna first look at the first three lines of this poem. Four if you include the blank space, but of course we may not. Uh, and the very first idea that comes up is the setting sun. And with how I see it, and I'm sure many other people do, is the setting sun is the beginning of an ending. Like, it's the
Mhm.
start of a new night, and yet night is the end of the day. How do you feel about that?
It's a new beginning,
Yeah.
and but still a change. It's different, but it's still welcome.
And it's also
I feel.
definitely like a mood switch. Sorry to cut you off there.
Oh, no worries. Absolutely, I agree. There's in poems, especially, the moon has such a different feeling than like the sun, and to
Yeah.
think of like night as being more reflective,
Yeah.
kind of ties into how I've sort of viewed this poem.
I see. Yeah. And like, I also get the feelings of like warmth going away, and now you're in this coolness, and that can also going to coincide with like the rain part, like the rain has abated, but with rain comes puddles and like everything that's left. And what's your take on that through the nighttime?
Through the nighttime, I definitely agree with what you're saying about like the rain being cold and like the night, and it's like a chilly, rainy night, and it sort of sets the mood for that the rest of the poem. Like
Yeah.
it's cold and it's just rain, and again tying into that rain. I mean, for me, rain has always been a comparison that I've heard. Like I don't know from family and people that I know is like rain is that crying from the heavens. It's the
Yeah.
mourning or the loss of something. And so with rainfall, I've always compared it with losing something. And I think that's a really big thing to notice when tying into like, hey, the sun has set, this has ended. The rain, the mourning period is it's done for now, but is it ever really over, I guess? I don't know how you view that.
Let's see. Yeah, like definitely could be like a, I do see rain to give off like a saddened, a bit of a heavy tone to things when you like put it in a scene. I personally like I'm a painter and an artist at heart, and having rain in a scene just makes everything bluer in a sense, like the abject
I
blue.
yeah, I feel that. And well, so what I wanted to point out real quick, sorry,
Go ahead.
with revisiting that rain is you have with the sun, it does say has set. And so that's like an official, it's ended, it's moved on. We have the moon now. But
Very
with
true.
the rain, the choice of word is abated. And
Yeah.
that's very much it's not done, it's just less
Yes.
intense.
Yeah. Lesson. Um. Put to a less intense. Yeah. It's more of a shower or like a sprinkle rather than true
Mhm.
rainfall.
And that's, yeah.
And with like your connection to rain and sadness, we could like look at this as a way of tears, just like you said, and
Mhm.
having still that sadness in you, and tears may still be falling, but it's not as like for it's not as abundant. It's not as like powerful as it was before. And
Yeah.
as like we previously talked about, it uh, gives this clarity in a way.
Mhm.
And with this like newfound clarity, you're able to like look at things differently. And I feel like that ties into the rest of the poem as well. So
I agree. I think like what we were going over with that moment of like rationality or like that realization. It's like you've ever been in like that moment where there's something that happens and it's just in that for a moment it just feels like everything is so overwhelming and you're sort of lost to that like God right now feels so terrible and it's like whether that's for you anger or if that's like crying and like for me I guess a lot it's like really being lost to that sadness and then when you have that it starts to calm down and it's like it doesn't that feeling doesn't go away. You're able to like
right,
re-examine your thoughts and sort of be like, okay, I've done my crying. This is over. I've come to terms with that. That sadness isn't gone, but like it's that moment when you finally have the quiet and like the calm. Maybe not positive calm, but the coldness, as you said, to re-examine it. Do you feel similarly, or?
I most definitely do, yes. Like, as we've talked about, this whole poem is about the end of things, the end of
Mhm.
a relationship, the end of sadness, and the end of the day. And when someone says the end of the day, really, it's like at the end of the day, I'm just feeling this, or at the end of the day, I'm doing that. And it's like coming to this one singular point where it's you realize, yeah, I'm right here, I'm right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was I. At the end of the day, I feel like I didn't connect that at first, so
Yeah,
I definitely 100% agree with that.
yeah. All right. All right. So we've already talked about the sun and the rain and all that, and that part was only the first line of this poem. Let's move on and go on to the porch light, the image of this thing that's lighting up the neighborhood in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
All right. So for me, when I imagine or like visualize a porch light, I see it hanging above a door, giving light to this opening per se, like an entranceway, or some people
Mhm.
can see it as an exit. But to me, um, with all the things that we've been saying about the end and how this whole thing's mostly in like the general sense an ending to many things, um, it could also be a beginning. And I feel the porch light represents that in a way, with it shining a light, radiating onto this new door, this new place you can go to. And yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with you. Like as we touched on in the first line, and like the title, just like the moon rises, and that's our new beginning. That sun has set,
Right.
but that moon is up there in the sky. Um, and I definitely see where you're coming with that porch light imagery. I feel like to me that's also though something that is there, but I think there's a deeper expression here.
Of
Like when you
course.
have the and every porch light and then there's the space and we move on to the next stanza before we start getting in the neighborhood is lit. And I think we've gone over a lot this reflective moment that we're sort of seeing in this poem.
Yeah.
And that space between the porch light being that of the narrator, the one that the poem is like centric upon. This is their light, this is their moment shining upon them.
Right.
And the neighborhood and everyone else's light sort of being there. And that space is that distance. It's the setting, but it's not where we are.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
No, that
examined
makes
that in this.
yeah, it makes total sense. I very much appreciate the visuals you gave, um, focusing on all that. I also want to like add with how we spoke upon realization and how it plays into this, like um, this idea and all that. I want to touch on how a porch light is usually, when one would think of a porch light, it comes in the form of a light bulb. And to me,
Mhm.
when I think light bulb, I think an idea. And to connect those two, the turning on of the light bulb and coming to a realization really coincide with each other in
Mhm.
symbolism's sake, like a motif of some kind. How do you view that notion?
I would absolutely agree with that. That is certainly, I think, a comparison that can be made. I think
Right.
we've also kind of not exactly well filming, but we've kind of offhand mentioned that like that porch light is sort of man-made,
Yeah.
whereas the sun and the rain is all a natural phenomenon, which again is like these are the things that are setting the scene,
Right.
and this is the feelings of what we have, which Again, could be kind of confusing with like the rain also being tied into the feeling.
Yeah,
But I think there's a lot going on with this poem, and no matter how you view it, you're gonna have a different retelling each time.
of course, of course. And like with how it's man-made, it could also be like this is their light. This is not the
Hmm.
light of, some unorthodox force or an outside thing. This was for them to see the
It's
way,
personal.
yeah, very personal in its effects. And being that every porch light in the neighborhood is lit, not just one or maybe two, of course, I feel like that's a topic that we need to address in some form.
Oh yeah, like it's I guess in like the times that I've read it, it's sort of been like a public viewing of this, but not
Right.
necessarily like everyone's out in the neighborhood gathered to watch this narrator suffer through like a processing of event. It's more of that like everyone is aware of it. Everyone sees this,
Yeah,
see this moment in time, this light.
true. Like everyone has a relatable like moment such as this. But for the reader, it would just be their porch light, even though it's also going on around them. Like, although they're no
Yeah.
different, this is their own place, sort of.
Yeah, I kind of see that. I think which is interesting because a lot of the time when you're reading over this, I think both of us put our own personal experiences onto this. Guy looked at it and I thought of like this time and this feeling that I had gone through. And you look at it and you may put your own experiences onto it.
Yeah,
Your approach light in a sense.
yeah. Like this is your glow to stand in, not
Yeah,
anyone
I think one
else's.
idea that I didn't really examine that I think I'm sort of picking up like right now
Yeah,
is that everyone in that neighborhood is experiencing their own porch light moment, you know? I like the idea of like it being while we focus on one moment, there's almost like each and every person in that neighborhood was each and every one of us reading this poem. And we all have our own we sat out there, we thought about it, and our little idea popped up, our little realization of everything that was going on.
yeah.
Our light bulb was lit. And this is sort of that I want to say like community.
Very true. Like with the, the mention of a neighborhood, I feel like it would also be very similar to what you said. It would be like not necessarily a community of sorts, but like everyone who has experienced this path or lived through such an experience will have this light to guide them or to be in,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I see that. I lean towards community because to me, I think that there's a bond that comes
Yeah.
with like, hey, we all went through this, even if it's not in the same way. And it's sort of that recognition with your peers.
I see. Yeah.
This is my light bulb moment, and let me share it with you.
Oh, that I love that output actually. Like that outlook. So sorry, but yeah, very much like it's like the writer is sort of sharing this moment with us in a way.
Mhm.
Very nice. All right, so we've touched on 3 lines of the poem. How lovely. We'll go on to the next one. Maybe we can invent something. I'd like a new. I'm gonna cut it off there instead of saying, going into the next part where it says way of experiencing the world. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But this idea of renewal or creation, what's your take on it?
Oh, geez. I think this one is a very conflicting one for me because there's the two ideas that you can take. You can take the idea that you receive that I think we should just examine here, which is the I'd like a new. or you can go into the next stanza. But the just like the space between the porch light and the neighborhood, there's a very intentional pause here.
Yeah, like a cutoff that allows for a different idea to sprout from, right?
Definitely, I would agree. I think that this author put this here for us to look at it and be like, I'd like a new what? Maybe a new chance is what comes to mind. Because when I look at this, it's like you're sitting there in that moment. What are these thoughts that's coming through your mind? And the first thing I think that you feel here is like, maybe we can invent something. Maybe we can get something new. Maybe there's a chance here that we're missing. Well, how can I fix this? How can I try this again? What happened here? What went wrong?
I see.
Again, it's like that. I guess for me, the invention and the sort of like man-made light bulb and shit is like I can do it. There's something I can do. This is my light bulb moment. This is my time to shine. I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know. That's my sort of take on it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel your take is like based around creation, right? Would you
Hmm.
say so?
I would agree. I think again, like we've touched on personal experiences, and my personal experiences. What can I do to fix this?
Yeah. So when I read it, I felt rather than creation, I feel like it's more of a fixing or recreation instead of inventing something entirely new. Uh, Reading the line, I'd like a new to a new
Mhm.
something instead of like making a new thing. I saw it that way with it being like, uh, I want to restart this project that's already been done, reinvent it, and create it into a different way that might be more suitable. But I'm not sure. How do you feel on that?
I would definitely I see that. Like I would agree with like I'd like a restart.
Yeah,
I think we took that and we both took it in different directions, but we
definitely.
still took it in the same way.
Yeah, it's still some form of creation. Yours is just more like building something entirely new, while what I went off of is like reinvention instead of just invention.
Yeah, I see that.
Right.
So last we left it off, we were going over how you viewed it as reinvention, and I sort of saw it as more of a completely new invention. And here we're taking from that last stanza with I'd like a new and moving on to our new stanza with way of experiencing the world. And to me, that was really again going into that this is a just new, not so much invention anymore, but more of like it's new, it's different. This experience has changed. I mean, to me, there's a distinct, every line to me is almost different. And here we go from seeing like, oh, what can I do to change this? Maybe we can come up with solutions to, it's maybe I just need to look at this differently. What am I learning? And you see that change in thought, which I think is broken up with like your spacing.
Yeah, I like your take on it. I do like see like when we talk about I'd like a new way of experiencing the world. Um, I like the foresight and where it's. Of course, we keep trailing back to the end of things, but
Hmm.
maybe to restructure it instead of seeing it as like, oh, things ended and I hate this. It's more so things ended and I can learn, just as you said. Things ended,
Yeah.
yeah, and all that. Let's move on from that topic and start getting into all this planetary wording. Would you like to start with it?
Sure, I'd love to. I think we once again have that. light going on, and it's the description of the light shining at the center and the planets orbiting around it. Before I really touch on losing it, I want to talk about like the symbolism behind like light in the center, planets around it, and sort of like we went over the porch light being separated from the neighborhood, that single moment that the narrator's focused on. And I kind of see that as that single light being them, and the way that they're taking into themselves that single light. It's that really being focused on their own feelings, who they are in this moment, and maybe in a sense losing everything around them.
I see. I never really thought of that light being their own, and instead thought of it as like finding someone else to give that shining light. But with that outlook, it paints it in an entirely different picture. Like, they've already moved on, they're not looking for love. Instead, they're looking for ways to improve themselves, which is honestly to me very beautiful as an idea.
Hmm. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's the same way that like your view of like another person, it's in the same way a really nice way to view the poem. I definitely see a message there that I wasn't necessarily looking for, but when I look at it through those lenses, it's just
Yeah.
it does come across as, I don't know, beautiful in the same way you said.
Yeah. It's like it's more growing rather than looking for this
Mhm.
sort of thing. Like, you're growing out of it, finding a new way to express yourself rather than like having this love or having something else to help accentuate yourself. You're doing that on your own, which to me is a wonderful concept that isn't really fully expressed or talked about in any sort of literature.
Oh, absolutely. Um, when you go over that, like the single light being another person
Yeah.
and all that, how do you feel about the without losing the dense eccentric planets?
Yes. So, well, I see that as like dense eccentric planets. These are things that like you've accumulated over time, like how a sun accumulates its like, system. And with this, like refinding yourself and obtaining this new light, you don't want to like take away the power or like any of the knowledge or anything like that from what you had. You don't want to like remove it from yourself or just like lose anything in
Hmm.
in a basic sense. I feel like, you know, just rebuilding in a sense. Like this whole topic, it's completely different from how I viewed it. So I'm really riffing off this, but yeah, looking at all this and just it's like trying to find your true self without losing the things that you have already done. Like,
Yeah, no, I definitely, that's kind of like the perspective I'm taking with this. I think for like both of us, like once we've come this far, we kind of get a better perspective of like how you're seeing this and how I'm seeing it.
yeah,
And I think for me, it's been more of like, it's like I've said, it's like that new invention. And I think for me, I'm looking at this with the outlook of how can I fix this? Um, how
right,
can I, like, what do I need to change? What about me? Focus on me. How can I make this better? How do I not lose this thing that I'm holding on to? How do I not lose these planets? How can I keep them here while still taking in like myself and being myself, but changing and like inventing something and a new experience to just of us, I think, because again, the relationship aspect that I think we'll get into more later. And for
right,
you, I think you're looking at this experience as like it's something that you can learn from, you can grow from. It's changing you and you're taking on the future, I guess. Which I'm not sure, is that how you feel?
It, partially. There's this concept of change. It's really, I don't feel that you necessarily need to change. And I don't think they're trying to tell you to. It's more so like um staying true to yourself and reclaiming what you had already instead of changing and acquiring something entirely new.
Hmm.
At least that's my viewpoint from how we've, addressed this.
Yeah, I see that. I think I might need to amend the way that I'm saying it to sort of give a bit more context. It's still a new invention, but I think it's more still trying to like fix. I think like for me, I guess, like I've touched on, is that like hopefulness and the desire and that longing for I want this to work. I don't want to lose it. I want I want that. I want to be me, but I want to push him away. I want to like maybe what is my solution?
Right.
And it's like that again we went back to that light bulb of idea, and it's like the idea of like realizing this all and trying that like I guess desperate search for something to cling on to, something not to lose is the way that I view this.
See,
A spiraling of thoughts, if you will.
yeah, it's very interesting. Like, it's not out of the box, but it's definitely something you'd find very hard to get in the box. And I entirely love your idea and your outlook on this. It's great and not entirely different from what I thought, but yeah, you painted it in a great light.
Yeah, I think a lot of this it's our I don't know, it's we're still viewing the same thing, but
Yeah,
it different experiences, different lenses, and it's
of
really
course.
fun to re-examine it and sort of think you're you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, but to quote the poem, you've got a different way of experiencing the world.
It certainly is.
So I feel like with this whole last section, there's so many ideas going on here, but it all connects. I think it flows in a way that feels really natural. So
Yeah,
I'm thinking we tackle this all at once.
I think so too. It does like all culminate together in this like final three stanzas.
These are definitely, I feel like all of it's really beautiful, but when we get to these stanzas, I feel like this is when I'm like
Yeah, like the emotions are really
about
punching
to
through.
sob. I'm ready to cry. Yeah, the emotional impact and the description of things. Like I read Wet Scorch of Orange Blossoms and immediately I get like a mental picture here.
Right.
I like going over the what you'd like is a more attentive lover, I suppose, just goes on from that spiral that I went on about over. And it's all these thoughts and like culminating, you know. I feel like mhm. And it leads into the too bad that slow, wet scorch of orange blossoms floating down the storm drain is not a vein of stars. That moment felt so pungent to me that like this I'd had this image in my head this entire time of like someone sitting on that porch,
Right.
that light flickering above them, just sitting on those stairs looking out. The rain is not as severe as it was before, but you still have that light little, I want to say,
Yeah.
like trickle down and onto like the roof above you, you know, that gentle sound that comes as rain that everyone knows all too well when you get the rain showers every once in a while. And it's there, it's calm. It's that soundtrack to this moment that we've been talking about, this realization. And with this, like blossom symbolism, all I can think of is like this is what caused this moment. I think something about like these flowers being brought to our, I want to say, little narrator we got going on here. This is their porch. This is their moment, and this was the culmination.
Yeah. There's a little thing I'd like to touch on for the flowers. Uh,
Mhm.
with how you said blossoms, like that idea. How I perceived it first in like my original like script sort of when looking over this, I saw the orange blossoms as a fake. Like you received you expected to receive a burning flame and instead got the glistening glow of these orange blossoms that look
Mhm.
and may feel the same but are not at all. And this is not what you were truly looking for. And like that was the realization that you came to at the end of it all.
I see that. I That's a really powerful way of looking at it. I think for me, oh geez, these are I love flowers. So
Same.
I give you a little background to this. Flowers are like known as being like good fortune, stuff like that.
Right.
And you know how like they're used in weddings and stuff like that because oh it means you've got good fortune and stuff like that. And like there's something really powerful about this imagery of these orange blossoms floating down the storm drain and just being washed away by this rain, never to be seen again. And I think there's something like this moment that I feel here is these were brought to our narrator.
Right. These are like
These were like this was a, these are like, what are you saying there?
oh, I was gonna say they're like some sort of gift in a way.
Yeah, it's like, it's that good fortune and it's not, I feel like we see this kind of turned on its head. And I don't know if that was, I feel like everything in this is intentional. And And I don't know, to watch it be like washed away is sort of saying goodbye to that. It's that final, like, what was that goodness that was there that is, it's not a vein of stars. It's not that idealized thing that you're like sort of witnessing as you sit there reflecting on everything that's happened. It's it's gone. How do you feel?
I feel like our ideas coincide with each other in a sense. Whereas, yes, this was a beautiful thing, and it's been lost to this force that you couldn't handle. But also, like,
Mm.
coming to that thought that in the end, even though it was beautiful, it really wasn't what you sought after, in a sense.
Yeah. I love how you called it the force that like you couldn't control, right?
Yeah,
And there's something that I love about, like, the comparison of, like, rain, like, that overpowering, like, emotion and, like, the crying and the loss and that I just sensation and that going into, like, that's, like, that all of that is pushing away all that good fortune, I guess. All that the beautiful parts
yeah,
are sort of being going down the drain. That idea of what it could be, those stars is gone, washed away by this overpowering force that you said.
it's like, yeah, very, it very much is an emotional, like, sense. I feel like there's a lot of nature tones in at least these three stanzas alone, like, much more natural, less like looking into the things that humans see and rather looking at a more ethereal, more godly, more out of reach sort of
Mhm.
image or symbol or something.
Oh, definitely. Especially when you get that, like we could make a wish on one of them. Not that we would wish for anything but the impossible.
Yeah,
That sticks with you to me.
like
That, as you were saying, I love that line.
yeah, and like to build off that a little bit, if we are seeing something so out of reach and yet to have obtained some part of it, this the at least the second to last stanza, the storm drain represents, at least to me from this context, represents us unable to handle that
hmm
in some form or way. Because the storm drain is of human creation, while a vein of stars is a celestial phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
And you're losing such an immense presence to something that you may neglect in your everyday life.
I think I want to draw back to that. The storm drain and the porch light are the two man-made things that
Yeah,
we like really confidently have. And I think it's again, those are like the most concrete ideas here where everything's very abstract. And we've sort of connected that to the porch light being like the idea, the culmination. The everything that's going on is because of that porch light. And the everything is sort of, I want to say, almost drifting away because of that storm drain. I feel it's very everything is very emotional, and that right there is just
yeah.
kind of I feel the narrator clinging onto something
It's very well
rational.
built up in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it starts off slow with the sun setting, the porch lights coming up, but then it gets existential. I'm not entirely sure if I'm saying that correctly, but yeah, it gets to this like otherworldly feeling, but then slowly it drifts back, still keeping that small feeling that you've reached something, but then it floats away and you're never going to be able to get it again. Or that,
Mm,
at least that very piece of it, you'll never be able to reach because it's lost down the drain.
that ooh, yeah, that's definitely ooh, that's I ooh, I've got a lot of thoughts on that. I mostly just like damn, that's not like bad thoughts, but mostly just like that's powerful.
Yeah,
You know, I think that really like relates to what I'm kind of seeing in this, which I don't know if that's like me trying to force like I really want to talk about psychology onto this.
go ahead.
But I think here it's very much like I've gone over is longing, loss, and what I'm starting to sort of lean towards as we share our experiences is grief. And I think in this you can sort of see kind of five stages of grief or dabda. So you've got your denial, you got your anger, you got your bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And I feel like we don't really see the denial on this. And I guess you could say the anger is like the sun is set. It's over. It's ended. The rain is gone. It's gone. And then we move on to the porch light and like the maybe we can invent something. I'd like a new way to like experiencing the world. Like the oldest thoughts that I was going over, all that like I want something new. I want to try again. I like that light, that me, that like what can I change to like not lose all that? That's our bargaining, you know. I
Right.
don't want to lose this. I can't say goodbye. That like oh well maybe it's just maybe you wanted a more attentive lover, you know. I could do that. That's like supposed to something I can change. those like I've said so many times, it's those racing thoughts that you have in that moment. It's like, what can I fix? What can I do? That bargaining with yourself. We move on to the depression. And I think that's where the ethereal sort of like feeling comes in. It's that those orange blossoms being washed away. That like it's that moment that is so it has so much weight that nothing else has. It's that feeling you can't put words into. It's such a distinct loss. And as it's gone, as it floats away, we get that powerful line. We could make a wish on one of them. Not that we could wish for anything but the impossible. And that right there, I feel, is the acceptance. I can't fight this loss. It's gone. It's gone down that storm drain. It's not coming back. It's been washed away. And it's, you can't take it back. You can only accept it. It's impossible.
I feel like I can't add anything else to that. You put it not plainly, very complex, but understandably so. I love your take on this. And
I I love your like opinion on it too. Very powerful.
right, well, that is the end of the poem. And I do thank you and enjoyed your time to come on and speak on it.
Oh yeah, of course. This has been, I want to say, so much fun, but I think that this poem has also made me have a midlife crisis a bit
Oh
too
yeah.
early.
Yeah, very emotional and impactful, at least for the times in this day and
Oh
age.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Anyway,
questioning my entire life.
same here. Anyway,
My therapist is going to have a lot to unpack.
yeah. Well,
God.
with it being the end, and all that, I'm sure people who are watching or listening, really depends on them. They may have different thoughts or ideas, so if you'd like, leave them down in the comments below. And I thank you for watching. And before we end off fully, would you like to read the poem like through again?
I mean, yeah. I think we've examined so many emotions in this that let's close it off with our like viewers and listeners just those thoughts fresh in their mind. Take a little perspective to focus on. And let's reread Out of These Moons, the Moon Will Rise by Jay Hopler. Now that the sun has set and the rain has abated, and every porch light in the neighborhood is lit, maybe we can invent something. I'd like a new way of experiencing the world. A way of taking into myself the single light shining at the center of all things, without losing the dense, eccentric planets orbiting around it. What you'd like is a more attentive lover, I suppose. Too bad that slow, wet scorch of orange blossom floating towards the storm drain is not a feat of stars. We could make a wish on one of them. Not that we would wish for anything but the impossible.